Ata māria koutou, piki mai kaki mai no mai haere mai. I declare the meeting of the Wellington Regional Waste Management and Minimisation Plan Joint Committee open. Members are reminded that this meeting is being live streamed. Welcome to everybody ngā o ngā hui e whā, and please use your microphones. There's a button, when the light's green, you're alive. Okay, we have, welcome. Excellent. We have apologies from Councillor Laurie Foon for lateness. I move that we accept these apologies. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary? Passed. Okay. Thank you to all of those members of the committee who are calling in for this meeting. Thank you for that. I'm now going to move into public forum. We have a request from Will Hanson of Earth Starch Organic Solutions, Earth SOS. Please come forward and take a seat here while I explain how we're going to go through this process. And Will, each you will have 5 minutes to speak, including time for questions. A bell will be rung at the 4-minute mark. And again, it will be rung at the 5-minute mark. Members can ask questions of clarification only and cannot enter into debate with you. Speakers, you should take note of the restrictions in the standing orders, which include that matters which are subject to separate hearing processes must not be discussed, and that a speaker cannot speak on an issue that they have previously spoken about. I don't think you're going to have any problems with this, are you, Kare? So with that, we will start. The floor is yours. Please proceed.
We good? Yes, we are. Mr. Chairman, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. My name is Will Hanson, co-founder of Earth Starch Organic Solutions. We manufacture and support the Rosie range of food scrap processing systems. I'm here to speak to item 7.1 and specifically the path forward for organic waste diversion in Wellington region. Yes, the SR1 procurement concluded without a successful supplier, but that's not the end of the story. It could be the beginning of a very different chapter. Not one large centralised solution, but a network of community scale sites, each making a difference for the community it serves, the land it returns soil to, and the region's overall diversion targets. The opportunity here can be bigger than just waste diversion. Our soils, often ignored, are depleted from decades of synthetic fertiliser use and erosion. Community organisations with tight funding are often one funding round away from trouble. Rosie helps with landfill diversion by locally processing food scraps, particularly hard to compost items such as that other systems struggle with. The output, named for good reason, Damn Good Soil by Rosie, is 100% organic and conforms to NZS 4454 requirements. It goes back to the land, feeding our depleted soils, processed in under 4 hours, locally, no odour, no leachate, and zero emissions. As we say, healthy soil, healthy food, healthy lives. We have designed Rosie to sit alongside existing community organisations, lifting their capacity and their income, enabling them to become financially self-sufficient. No operational grants, no funding anxiety. Each Rosie site generates revenue and connects into our growing network with one full support from day one. It's also worthy to note, very handy in case of civil emergency. The region has committed to reducing organic waste to landfill by 50% within the next 3.5 years. There's no time to wait for a new solution. Rosie is already here in Upper Hutt and growing. The site, operated by Ron Vink and his team at For a Better City, is processing food scraps today from a mix of domestic and commercial sources, including Upper Hutt City Council and some businesses from Wellington. We know that people respond to a great story, and Rosie is proving to be one of those. Rosie is not a pilot. Rosie is not a prototype. Rosie is working infrastructure, diverting food scraps and producing clean soil conditioner in your region right now. It scales and replicates. In a little over 12 months, demand has almost outgrown capacity for a bit of city. They're now upgrading to a unit 3 times larger. And there are further opportunities developing within the Wellington region and around the Motu. That's what community appetite for a great solution looks like. Council officers in the Wellington region have already recognised Rosie as a solution with potential. At the recent Wasteman's and Alga conference, we had encouraging talks with various councils and some already organising site visits and further discussions. We're looking for government and councils to support community organisations and smaller business initiatives to scale with the Rosie system to help make a positive difference in societal impact. With this kind of support, landfill diversion can be operational within 12 months. I'd like to leave you with words from Joe Turton, who's the General Manager at Sustainable Taranaki. They're in the final stages of funding a Rosie system. And these are his words and his why for choosing Earth SOS and Rosie. He says, for a community organisation, Rosie is the rare thing that will enable us to do real environmental good and help us earn our own way at the same time. We would much rather see it sitting in community hands, run environment first and profit second, than left to extractive companies to make the most of. Ngā mihi, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Well, now I have a request for a question from Councillor Foon. Just under the line, I'll allow that question to go. Councillor Foon.
Yeah, kia ora, thank you. Just quickly, how are you working with Upper Hutt City Council at the moment, and how did the trial in Kapiti go?
So the Kapiti trial went very well. Upper Hutt City Council came to me and offered a deal that was too good to miss, and supported a set-up to go to a stage 2. And that's where we're managed to set up the pre-treatment and get a full system operating and build client base. So we've now sold that site, and For a Better City have been operating it. So Upper Hutt City Council have been outstanding, helping us with the getting everything to work.
And just a follow-up question, how much diversion in tonnes have you been managing so far?
At the moment, they're averaging about 4 tonne a week.
Great.
So it's a small system, but yeah.
Thank you.
Did you want to have one question, Councillor Mitchell?
If I can, yeah.
I'll let you one, and then I'm going to close it there. So
Thank
go
you.
ahead, Councillor
Thank you. Well, you mentioned the procurement process that a couple of our councils have been through recently, and it's in our papers today. Were you able to participate in that process?
Yes, we did. We were right at the start of our just getting the Rosie system in, so we were a little bit young for that process. But we've well matured from the last 3 years. Have been big growth for us.
I just think I recall now. I think I may have seen you at a Waste Forum event with a wonderful shirt like that. How could I possibly forget you? Thank you very much for coming in, Kahanohi Kite, for us to hear your presentation. Yes, thank you for your time, and travel safely, please.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's move on now to item 4, which is the conflicts of interest. I call for any conflicts of interest that may need to be declared. There are none. We're moving to item 5, notification of extraordinary business. There are no items of extraordinary business. This is going very quickly, right, isn't it? Item 6, confirmation of minutes. We are asked to confirm the minutes of the Wellington Region Waste Management and Minimisation Plan Joint Committee held on Monday, the 2nd of March 2026. I move that we confirm the minutes as a true and accurate record of that meeting. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much, Councillor McLeod. I will now put the motion, which has been moved and seconded. All those in favour say aye. Aye. To the contrary. Abstentions? Carried. Item 7. 7.1, Wellington Region Waste Management and Minimisation Plan 2023 and 2029 Progress Update. I move the motion. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mitchell, thank you very much. Obviously the item has been circulated to committee members. Give the opportunity now for officers to come forward and speak to that item and provide any additional information before we go to questions. So, officers, please. Atamaria Porirua, thank you for coming along. The floor is yours. Remember the green light's your key that the mic is hot. Sorry, you please start with your introductions if possible, and then we'll go from there.
Kia ora koutou. I'm Yvette Falloon and I'm the Regional Advisor. This report provides an update on progress against the major regional projects under the Regional Implementation Plan, and also provides an update on how each of the councils are working to address the key waste streams. This waste stream update will alternate with the local action plan updates, and the next local action plan update will be provided at the September meeting.
Okay.
In this reporting period, there have been 2 regional projects that have entered the closure phase, and there's also been a major milestone reached in the C&D facility opening in Porirua in May. One of the projects reaching closure is the strengthening the Wellington Region Waste Forum project, and following the triennial general meeting and special general meeting held in April and May to wind up the forum under the previous terms of reference. We are now asking the Joint Committee to formally endorse the updated terms of reference for the Waste Minimisation Forum. And I'm going to pass on to Jessica Hayman from Hutt City Council to provide a verbal update on the Future Pathways project.
Kia ora koutou. Yes, my name is Jessica Hayman. I work at Hutt City Council as a Senior Advisor for Waste Planning and Strategy. In your papers, we've got a brief outline of an update on the Future of Waste Pathways project, so Project R6. This is just a verbal update on how this is progressing against Stage 1, which you'll see set out is essentially the modelling piece. So it's the what and how much across the region, what waste are we looking at and how much of it. This will flow into the further stages that you can see set out at Stage 2, which is essentially an options analysis to form pathways for what it might look like over the next 30 years with the future of residual waste disposal, as well as large interventions for diversion that could take place in that time. The intention being that it would be more informative to elected members and the region as a whole to have a series of pathways that are available instead of jumping from now to 30 years' time straight to the residual waste disposal options. Progress against Stage 1 is going well. Initial modelling was done with the regional data framework piece that the region's been contributing to for the last 2 financial years, as well as additional information from across the region. This will be updated and refined, and that's currently in progress at the moment, to make it in a state that all the assumptions and the data can be tested with regional officers to get it as strong as possible. This will also include waste to the 3 in-region landfills, as well as waste going to Bonnie Glen, which is obviously another factor for the region, particularly for Kapiti and Wairarapa. The region has nominated a working group for the testing of these assumptions. And then Stage 1B is adding to that what and how much to go where is the waste coming from. So the idea being to take a snapshot, ideally at the 3 in-region landfills and transfer stations across the region, to get a perhaps 2-week snapshot of where the waste is coming from, so that we can see those flows as well, which will enable us to test the scenarios a bit better. That is still in the design phase with the region. And then the detailed RFP for the pathways approach for Stage 2 is still needing to be worked through, but the package of the data model and the overview of the waste flows would be intended to be able to be presented to the consultants to work through. So that is a brief update on progress of Stage 1 and the planned approach. Thank you.
That's all for the... okay. So for those who have not been in this process, I'm happy for you to bring up questions from any part of the report so we can go through there. It sometimes helps if you do have a reference to ensure that other members of the committee are up to speed as well as you raise your questions. We'll cover questions first and then we'll come back to comment afterwards. So I want to make sure that all committee members have an opportunity to clarify anything. So, Councillor Foon.
Yeah, kia ora, thank you for the report. I guess the question is from a councillor, well, we've got a shifting landscape, which you'll be aware of. In terms of urgency, what timeline are we working toward for this project to get outcomes that we can act?
Kia ora, through you, Chair. The current timing for this project would be aiming for delivery of the final report by July next year, so July 2027. We'll be providing updates on those milestones in the major project updates to make sure that we're keeping you up to date for any delays. Another piece of that puzzle is that this, in the original scoping, has been framed as being a report that would also need to be updated if it's not used straight away. So obviously it's giving us our options at this stage, but it could be a report that perhaps in the next WMMP period needs to be revisited to go, what's changed? What is other information that would be useful for any decision making to take place? But this report does not cover the decision making on what options to choose. It's the options available.
Yeah, okay. And just one next question. If the environment is changing, where are the opportunities to reflect the change or actually move into more urgency?
Kia ora, I can answer that. So in the next 3 months, we're having 2 workshops at an officer level to do a mid-term WMMP implementation plan review. Flows off the tongue nicely. And the purpose of that is the officers will get together and look at the implementation plan that was put together 3 years ago when things have changed quite significantly in that period of time, to review what are the priorities, what are the timelines, are there anything that's emerging that we need to elevate that we weren't aware of back in the date, and we will bring that back to the Joint Committee for endorsement and potentially workshops, discussions as well around what that looks like.
And sorry, what was the timeline for that?
So we would bring that back for the next Joint Committee.
Okay, so September. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Free, then Councillor Mitchell.
So this is all at quite a high level, and I haven't been on this committee before. So you mentioned there's initial data collection and modelling and assumptions. Can you just elaborate, and I'm sorry, this probably for other people this is probably obvious, but what type of data are you collecting?
So we do an annual data collection as part of, I think it's Regional 2, which is going through all the information that the councils hold that looks at what's being diverted, so tonnage in that respect, activity source data, so any data coming through a weighbridge needs to be sorted into activity source. We also added last year, for the first time, territorial authorities had to report to MFE about recycling tonnages, so we also added that to the data collection piece. And I think for the councils that have transfer stations, it's total tonnage coming through there, and then councils that own a landfill, it's the total tonnage being received. We also separated out into special waste, which includes contaminated soil as well as sludge. So we're trying to get, the idea being we're trying to get a data piece there that can inform all of the regional projects, but it's done in a consistent way each year, which will also help us for the next regional waste assessment.
Can I ask just a clarification? So what's the difference between the tonnage diverted and the recycling tonnage?
The tonnage diverted piece can include things like perhaps tyres, it can include versus the curbside recycling piece.
Metal things and what have you, okay.
And we're also, I think, including tonnage diverted through things like events and other bylaw pieces.
Okay, thank you, that's very helpful.
Any more questions, Councillor Free?
No, that's been very helpful.
Councillor Mitchell, and I'll come back to Councillor McLeod.
Yeah, I had a few questions about the food waste project, if I can go to that.
Yes,
Yeah.
proceed.
Okay, thank you. In our papers, it mentions that there were, I think, 4 parties involved. Did we hear from all the players that we expected to put a foot forward on this one?
So through the procurement process, which was quite a long process, as you all know, there were different stages. And so what that meant was that the 4 suppliers at the end, one was slightly different to who we were expecting to hear from due to changes in their setup. I can provide a bit of an update, though, around, please stop me if this is in the correct place, but we've been directed to keep an eye on emerging what's happening in the region around organics. Officers went up to Manawatu on Friday to have a look at a possible proposal that's being done with Manawatu District Council, Powerco and MFE. They're waiting to hear from MFE whether they've got funding, but if they get the funding, then it's looking quite possible that they will be able to set up an anaerobic digestion biogas facility within the Fielding area, which may be of interest to this region. But they weren't part of the procurement.
Thank you. And I know there's some sensitivity around procurement processes, but are you able to talk in broad terms about where the procurement process, where the tenders fell short in terms of what we were looking for?
So you're correct, we have to be a bit careful. At a high level, it came down to cost and meeting the requirements of the councils around the feasibility and the security. The last thing that we want to do as a councils or as a region, I think, is to roll out a service where we don't have surety that the service can cope. So if the processing solution fails and needs to be shut down, that's probably a worst case scenario. So we need to make sure that there's certain things that ticked, like around the resource consenting, etc.
Any more questions on that, Councillor Mitchell?
Yeah, just one more based on the public comment we've had today. Was that process open enough that it could consider a distributed network of smaller solutions, or was it really focused on one processing plant?
I wasn't involved right at the start, but I understand that it was designed to be as open as possible, but it did need to deliver a solution or solutions that would be able to accommodate the region's organic materials.
Sorry, I just want to jump in there just to get that clarity. When you, in that previous response, that was not just of the council's own procurement process for its own situation, but it was a solution that could be upscaled to meet other councils who may want to join and participate in time.
That is correct. That was always the intention.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor McLeod.
Kia ora, thank you very much. I just have a question around the future waste pathways. Our Park City Council has had quite a discussion around this at their last committee meeting with a notice of motion from one of our councillors. So there's some really great questions in the status update here. What I want to kind of understand is the data is being collected and we're likely to get a report back in September. Is the work being done on what things might look like in 30 years' time, how and where are we going to take care of landfills, for example, given Spices is closing down, Silverstream has a shorter lifespan, you know, there's challenges in Wellington. Is that part of the discussion and therefore will come to us in September, or are we expecting just a report on the data in September?
So just to clarify, the September report I was talking about is the implementation plan, so around looking at how all the different projects will be prioritised and looked at. But in terms of responding to your specific questions about this project, I might get Jess to come up.
Thank you, Councillor McCart. So the data piece also covers what might happen to the waste flows to the different landfills when they close. So what we're looking at doing is when we're modelling for Spicer to close, what might the impact then be on Southern and Silverstream. So that is being included, and it will be looking out and trying to model it over that 30-year period. So we can do quite a lot with the next 4 years because we know what the actions might be and what might happen. It gets less and less detailed as we then go out, but the idea being that we go over the next 30 years, if Spicer shuts here, Southern shuts here, Silverstream shuts here, our waste streams are this, our waste volumes are that. What does that do to that regional closure date, essentially, for those landfills? What does it bring it in? And then that is ideally going to be used to inform the options analysis to go, okay, so what are our options to make that last longer? How can we stretch out those dates to the highest value use? So the data modelling piece is not just a snapshot in time for now, it is looking out over that 30-year period.
And just a further question to that. So will there be any thought given to where there might be some landfill space, or how we might be able to handle items going to the landfill? Even if one idea is to push the timing out, it's probably not ideal. The ideal would be what solutions could we come in the future so we don't have to think about pushing it out.
Thank you. So the options analysis, so stage 2, those pathways will end in disposal options. So one of the key parts of it, quite a fundamental part, is what would the residual waste disposal options be? We haven't designed the RFP for that stage yet, so we would have to go through what level of detail we'd be looking for, which might not be the where, but it might be what are the options available in terms of technologies, including landfills, and including in the scope potential logistics options. So it could be that if your tonnages have come right down, you're then looking at other options of potentially moving it up the island or something like that. So the idea is that those residual waste disposal options are still in there. We're just allowing more information to come in about what could happen in the 30-year time frame to inform those options.
I'll go to Councillor Fern and then Councillor Clark. I've got you next.
Kia ora, can I just ask, and I think I know the answer to this, but how long have we been working on the options? Sorry, I can't get my internet on, but if someone is available, I'd love that. But yeah, just the pathways, like your project you're working on, how long have we been working on it so far?
So we started with the last round of the regional data collection, which informs the modelling, ended in September last year. We did a bit of follow-up to try and get it working to fill the gaps. So we probably had a fuller data picture by the end of last year. And so the start of this year has been working through a lot of the scoping piece to make sure that, so we did the initial modelling. It became pretty clear that after 2029, it was very hard to fill that time period and figure out what was going to happen, besides population growth pressures, which we can model for. So that was where we took it back to the region and worked through the scoping in more detail to figure out how we could make it work better. And then that modelling piece has continued. So that's been the framing.
Okay, great. And then just in terms of data analysis, like how far in terms of perfection, you know, are we kind of trying to get it too perfect, or is there a high level? Like what scope are we working to try and get this information or process through to get an outcome?
The data modelling is high level. We are doing it through internal resource. So that has been done at Hutt City Council at the moment, which means it is high level. We're trying to strike the balance between knowing what we don't know, because we're never going to have that information. So it's getting as strong a data picture as we can, but that's where the assumptions piece comes in. So as long as we're comfortable with what the assumptions are that are being made and we're communicating that openly, we don't want to go down a rabbit hole of making it too detailed.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark, you may need to unmute your Microphone. Nope. Unfortunately, we can see your
Okay.
mouth. We can't.
I'll give up.
Oh, no, now it's working. Councillor Clark,
No.
we can hear you now.
Now it's working? Okay,
Yes, please proceed.
technology. Just following on from all that, again, new councillor, very new to this area and interested in the report that's coming, which is obviously very high level. Is there one place on some kind of website or somewhere that kind of collates all of the different types of waste diversion activities and who is using them and how, because I'm aware there's different things like tyres, there's mattresses, there's burning construction, there's sending it here, there's all such a huge raft of activities, and I don't kind of know what they all are, and I'm interested to learn if there is some kind of place where all of those activities are collated.
Officers are preparing a response. Don't worry, Councillor Clark. They're working on it.
I imagine you're talking regionally. To a degree, through these joint committee reports where we do the waste stream updates, each of the councils talks about what they're doing and what's happening. To try to reduce the duplication, though, we don't really talk about things that are already happening. We're talking about things that have changed in the last 3-month period. Each of our websites have also got information around the different diversion activities that we have. But I'm not sure if we've got one consolidated piece of information which you could refer to. I could, looking at my other council colleagues, if anyone has any insights.
It feels like it's a national issue.
Sorry, Councillor Clark, I'm just going to wait for the other staff and then I'll come back to you. Okay.
Kia ora, through the chair. It sounds like there's a bit of an opportunity to perhaps to consider whether we can consolidate some of our individual offerings of our websites onto perhaps the less waste, greater space or some such, at least refer links for people to go to from there.
Does that resolve that question for you, Councillor Clark? If so, do you want to move to the next question or?
Yes, no, that's fine. I'm just aware that nationally as well, there are different activities like we can't do in the Wairarapa or may not even do in Wellington region that might be happening elsewhere, and trying to get a more whole picture of it. But that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Free.
Very quick question, and just something I wanted to clarify from my last questions. You talked about diversion. Does that include things like the tip shops or the recycling centres?
Yes, so the regional data collection covers that as far as it's council run. So obviously the data we collect when it's under our control, either funded by us or run by us. So it does count the tip shops and things like on-site diversion up at Silverstream landfill. But that it doesn't cover just general community diversion, which we don't hold the data to.
Okay.
I need to clarify something. Councillor Ayling, I see you on the screen. I don't know if you are waiting to ask a question or not, so I just better double check. Are you wishing to ask a question?
Hi, sorry, yes, I was waiting for the next opportunity to ask a question.
It's now your time. Go ahead.
Fantastic. I just had a question with regards to the organic study. One of the officers mentioned before that something is potentially in the works in Palmerston North / Fielding. I wonder if there's a timeline on that project.
So they're currently waiting to hear from MFE around funding. After that, there is a location, but the timeframes, I couldn't give any certainty around that because it depends on a lot of things. But if it does come to fruition, then obviously we'll come back to this committee to provide updates.
Okay. Councillor Foon?
Yes, I am asking on behalf of my fellow councillors because I can hear them in my ear. Just regarding the Cleanfill investigation, so just once again, how long have we been working on this and when are we expecting? So is there a timeline for outcomes? And the second question on that is, while we've got the clean fill investigation, we've now got an alarming problem with contaminated waste. And so I did hear you talk about that, but yeah, what is the process for us being able to elevate that in terms of priorities?
So you're absolutely right that there's certain projects which are now more urgent than they potentially were at the start of the WMMP, and that's exactly why we're doing this midterm review. Because there's some things that may drop in priority. There's obviously only so much work that we can do, but other things that need to be elevated. In terms of the Clean Fill project, I'm not sure if there's an update available. I know that's really active at the moment. In terms of the procurement, and things have happened since we've written the report here. Yeah. I think we're probably getting close to having someone engaged. Is that? Oh, the answer is yes. Excellent.
I just want to carry on, Councillor Foon, and
Yeah.
then I'll go to Councillor
Yeah,
Free.
kia ora. And then the next one is on the emergency project. Like same question again. How long have we been working on this? What are the barriers to actually getting through this? And given the recent storms we've had, I'm assuming this will be top of mind for many councillors now that we've had to respond and actually react. So what are the barriers to getting this project moving faster?
So we have now got a regional program manager on board, which is great. So we're able to make a bit more progress than we previously were able to make. There is a saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go better, go together, or something along those lines. So obviously as a region, we need to agree on what the scope of these documents looks like. And there are opportunities for good, robust discussions around what this looks like. And I think we get better work out of it from that, but it does take a bit of time.
So to just clarify, how long has it taken to get to this point?
1 second. So from December. Yes. Yeah.
Councillor Free.
Sorry, I know I'm asking some very fundamental questions, but just thinking again about your categories of waste and what you're measuring, where does the green waste and the organics fit in? You may have mentioned organics before. I'm sorry if I didn't.
So the green waste division would be in that regional data framework. That will be a separate line item for green waste division. Where food and green organics are being diverted through other processes like at events, it would be counted in there as well.
But not household, I suppose there's no way of measuring it. No, okay.
Before I go any further, I just want to make sure that, so as to make sure that Councillor Free feels comfortable, we are all capable of asking all those questions. I think it's important that you be able to do so. Do not feel that you need to ask questions that may seem simplistic. This is your opportunity to ask those questions, and feel free to do so.
Thank you.
There are times when I feel like I'm asking stupid questions too. So we all will support each other as we walk through this role of oversight.
Yeah.
I have no one else on my speaking list, so I'm going to ask my questions if possible. All right, cool. I give everybody else a chance first, And then after that, I think we'll go to comment if at that stage. So I just want to go, first of all, with regards to, it has been noted already that there is some sensitivity around the role of procurement and officers' ability to speak on those. And it is not, I think, this committee's job to critique individual councils or their teams. We come here in good faith to work collaboratively on this project. But I guess for those who are watching, can I get some commentary perhaps from officers in terms of if there is a potential new site opening, what does that mean for individual councils in terms of that next steps conversation, noting that next year is an LTP and the time frame for that, for bringing up any future discussion that involves additional funding through the ratepayer is rapidly dwindling. Can someone give me perhaps a high level conversation commentary on that?
I can try. So you're right, the LTP timeframes, they seem to roll around quite quickly. The opportunity, so if, and there's an if a facility was to open and it would service a wider region than just Wellington, obviously, it'd be the lower north, it would be up to individual councils potentially to procure a service with them. However, I would hope that in this regional context that we would work together around trying to ensure that our services are similar and that there's a similarity for ratepayers across the region. There is also a really big part of organics which I think often gets missed, and that's around the commercial players. So residential curbside collections are definitely a component of this, but actually it's a relatively small amount of organics that's going to landfill. So if such a facility was to open, we could definitely be encouraging commercial players in our areas to utilise a service such as this. Does that answer that question?
I think I have one other question. Again, it may put you in a curly position, but I think you've attempted very well to not breach any sensitivities. And that is, knowing that a procurement process by any individual council, let alone a group of councils working in concert, needs to have robustness on behalf of ratepayers in compliance with the Local Government Act. Would it be prudent for councils, as part of that revised procurement project, to perhaps go and look at alternative options so as to be assured that all options now on the table were considered fairly as well?
So I'm not a procurement expert, and we would obviously seek advice from experts around what is required to keep councils safe and to make sure that it's a fair and legal process.
And then I have one more question, and again, you may not be able to answer this for the reasons that have come up in the previous answer. I think in regards to any procurement process, there is always the risk that an external provider may no longer be able to provide that service. This is not a unique thing to waste management. It's a factor on any provider. So I'm trying to understand, is there a challenge here, a policy issue around the robustness of the process that individual councils play and meeting that expectation of managing the risk around the provider no longer being available for whatever reason, that imperils our ability to also get a cost-effective solution?
Are you referring to resilience? So if a facility was no longer able to take the organics, for example, where that would go? Yes. That would obviously need to be part of any project planning. What are the alternatives? There are other solutions around which, as was illustrated through the procurement process, may not be that favourable, but we would need to consider those if this was to get off the ground.
And one more technical question, and I think it's already been answered, but when trying to get a consolidated assembly of data from each of the councils around waste, there are different timeframes and so forth. Is it possible that a part of any discussion by officers after this meeting around the consolidation of that information, even an annual kind of snapshot may be a useful kind of way of incorporating into future reports? Because I know that may be the only way forward, considering that there are just so many different pieces moving, so many different councils and components in there. Would that be a reasonable expectation?
Yes, I think it is. I was just looking to Evie. There is the project that Jess was referring to as well as the regional data framework. And I think it's fair to say that when we did the waste assessment last time, it was quite challenging to pull together the data from the different councils. People were gathering different data, different timeframes, made it a bit messy. Evie's done great work with the region to kind of consolidate that and to make it easier so everyone knows what data is expected and when it's expected. In terms of reporting that back, and there's a lot of data points, so we could provide data back, but it might be a bit overwhelming as well. So maybe a bit of a steer on what particular data that you guys are after would be useful.
So I think I'll take that that it's an opportunity for individual committee members to relay to me what they would like to see in some sort of consolidated report. Councillor Clark, that'll be our homework, I suspect, but I'm putting it out to everybody so there's no, so everybody gets an opportunity to feedback back in for the next meeting. I'm going to cut off the questions at this stage. And
Excuse me, Jeff.
Yes.
Yeah, my first question is, how do I get into the queue for questions?
You usually put your hand up,
All
Councillor.
right, okay. No, I was looking for buttons here, and you've sort of been looking that.
We're old school here, and not to be ableist, but your ringa will be the most powerful tool you have in this context.
Yeah, no problems at all.
So please, Councillor Halliday, do you have a question?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Look, I only have two. I'd actually not questions, some more comments, to be honest.
Okay, so
No, well, they sort of are a question, and but you can gather whether I should be doing it more. On,
I think the way to resolve this is that if you if you didn't know about asking questions, then I'm going to give you some latitude in how you structure your responses. But also, as to make sure that there is parity here, you will get the first opportunity to give comments. So either way, you're good to go.
Okay, that's
Haere tonu.
Look, the first thing is I noted officers talking about organics at a high level over the next 3 months. I just want to reiterate the importance of this. I know we've gone through a procurement process which hasn't been successful, but I know from our end we really are looking. This is a high priority for us. We are looking for solutions here. Not saying that the solutions being offered, look, obviously they didn't fit the parameters that we needed. But we do need to be looking for options. Really, really heartened to hear about the fielding scenario. Can you clarify for me, does there a rail line that goes through fielding at all? There is. Yeah, okay, so getting stuff up there could be a feasible option by rail if we had to. So that's sounding really, really awesome. And of course, the presentation from Rosie this morning, being well aware of that setup, could be something that could be brought in potentially on an individual scale. I don't know, but we really do need to be pushing forward from this. I think 60% of our curb collection's organic. I know you're noting that the commercial stuff is a lot higher. I get that, but we do need to be looking at how we get that sorted. The second thing is I noticed that in number 8 there was lessons learnt around the recent flooding and the waste collections and how that all worked. And I was wondering if there could be some officer comment around that, and I'm picking there are a lot of lessons learnt, whether they'd be circulated to other councils, because this is, as you noted here, first time that Wellington cities had to deal with that. I don't think it'll be the last, and I don't think it'll be the last that other councils have to start stepping into this space as well. And this has been a little bit outside of our preview of what we've looked at, but one of those new things that's cropped up, and with the way climate change is going, it's more than likely going to be looking at getting worse rather than better.
I can share some of the high-level learnings. These learnings will obviously also feed into the emergencies project that the region is doing, and obviously other councils will have had experiences as well that can feed in. And a lot of officers have also worked in been called out to help other areas hit by emergencies, so they also have valuable information that can feed into it. From WCC's perspective, this was the first time we'd kind of stood up this sort of response. We had done free green waste collections only a couple of months ago or something, and that was actually really valuable experience in terms of the health and safety requirements of if you offer free collections at a landfill, it's not very sensible from a health and safety perspective. You basically get huge queues and it causes a lot of problems. So I think this is kind of generic and high-level stuff, but it's a huge effort. So the team collaboration is key. There was a lesson around things always take a lot longer than you think that they will take, and this was across the board. So talking to households, getting things delivered, getting contracts organised, all these things took longer than expected. They were still really quick, but higher and harder than what we thought. If you need to rely on contractors, so a lot of councils are now contracting out these services, you need to rely on those who are having good, solid relationships, because you might not have contract arrangements in place, but you need to be able to call on them. Things around data quality, like what houses are affected, is really important. The comms that gets fed to the public and also to officers and to elected members and to everyone else is key. And as we all know, that can be a bit challenging at times, and the ability just to pivot really quickly. But as I say, the findings of all of this will feed into, I think we've got our own internal reviews happening, but also into the Emergencies Waste Project.
You've covered your comments, or
Yep, no, and I guess you're talking about that last bit there, that last piece of work. Just, Chair, perhaps you could clarify for me, do we have a piece of work as part of our regional plan that talks to emergency waste as such?
there is one of our work streams. So in the waste minimisation plan, we'll pull that copy out and circulate to all committee members so they've got where the lay of the land is on that.
And just whether if we're looking at doing a mid 6 year, 3 year, the mid review, whether we perhaps need to be looking at incorporating that, maybe elevating it a little bit if we're looking at this potentially becoming a BAU, and hopefully not, but it's where I think we know it's heading. This is going to be a BAU scenario, whether we need to front foot some of the conversations as taking the lessons that have been learnt from Wellington. There's no point having an emergency where we learn a whole heap of lessons but then don't implement processes for the future to help streamline response.
Councillor Halliday, I would take that as, I will relay that through me as a request in terms of officers to consider that as part of its future status updates.
And I'll just say organics.
Okay. Councillor Mitchell. Thank you, Councillor Howard.
Yeah, just a couple of quick questions before we wrap up. One was about the new C&D facility here in Porirua, and it's great to see that that's open and operational. I was curious what's being done to promote that service across the region to builders, for example, in Lower Hutt.
Kia ora, through the chair there. So Wasteco have established the facility and at the moment are processing some of their materials from their own skips to shore up their processes and their SOPs, but they have been talking to, they had an event on the Friday for industry and neighbours to attend. They've been coming along to the build clusters. They're getting on board with a construct conference-y, exhibition-y thing in August. But no, they are working with the industry. So they've talked to quite a few of the bigger waste players that I'm sure we can think of to make sure that they have access to the facility as well as the likes of Kainga Ora and stuff here in Porirua.
Thank you. And the last question I had was with regards to the terms of reference for the Waste Forum. And it talks in there about a hybrid funding model. And one of the things that's not mentioned in there is the waste levy. And I remember a few years ago when we decided to no longer charge membership fees, there was a statement made that we can always cover this out of the waste levy, either collectively or individually. And maybe it's hidden in there under host council budget contributions. But I just wondered if there'd been any thought to putting waste levy money directly into operating that forum.
Can officers give any comment to that?
Yes. Yes, waste levy money can be used towards that.
I suspect that the line of questioning has helped with regards to highlighting that issue. I note again, guys, it says questions. This is comment time, not questions. But if you've got questions, I will bend the rules. But can we just, can we all agree to the stand by the rules that we all stand by, right? So Councillor McLeod and then Councillor Foon.
Yeah, I've just got a general question through you, is that where does mana whenua fit in this? Where, with all of this work that's being done, do the staff meet regularly with mana whenua partners? Have we got a partnership? Do we invite them around the table? Could you just give me a bit of a catch up on that? Would be great. Thanks.
I can give you clarity with regards to the role of the committee from the previous triennium, but then I think officers will want to give a more nuanced answer in terms of that at an operational level. So let's do upoko me upoko ne. So first of all, in the previous triennium, my predecessor had tried to reach with the support of officers with mana whenua to actually see if they wanted to play a role at this board. They've chosen not to at this time. We continue to make sure that they have the opportunity to do so. They do submit on, have submitted in the past on our plan, our regional waste minimisation plan, and have provided commentary on that. I will leave it to individual to officers to talk about the relationship on a day-to-day at the shovel level officers.
So to a degree, it depends on what the projects are and the level of information that is being shared. At Wellington City Council, it has been a bit challenging. We have obviously extended invitations and tried to work around the development of the WMMP with mixed levels of engagement. There is clearly a desire to minimise waste and to minimise the impact on the environment, but that hasn't really translated into sitting at the table and talking.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. David Down, Manager Waste at Porirua City Council. Just wanted to also put in that outside of the WMMP, we have a number of very large waste projects each council will be undertaking. For example, we've just had a major decision made on Spicer here at Porirua. It's not a WMMP action, but certainly with a big project like that, we have had Ngāti Toa engaged with us for some years as we built up through, do we get a consent? Can we get a consent? No, we can't get a consent. What's the option? So with those larger ones, obviously, mana whenua, Ngāti Toa for us, engagement is very important.
Did you want to ask another question in regards to that line of questioning?
Yeah, sure. I'm particularly interested around the future discussions because, around land availability for different bits and pieces, discharge onto land, those sorts of things. I do realise that's probably a regional council discussion, but where are mana whenua being involved in those discussions around the future of waste infrastructure?
If officers want to respond to that, happy to allow that. It's a perfectly reasonable question.
My apologies, musical chairs. So as part of the RFP design, that would be something that I think the steering group would need to discuss how to do that appropriately, and that potentially could be looking at testing those options in the pathways against a criteria or working and engaging with mana whenua. But that would be something we'd work through for the design of stage 2, so the options analysis piece.
Okay. Councillor Foon?
I was going to comment.
Then please proceed. Lead us through this.
Only if everyone's ready. I'm happy to wait if there are more questions.
Councillor Foon, that's a very honourable suggestion. Last call for pārtai. All aboard. Councillor Foon, please proceed.
Yeah, great. Look, probably just to obviously thank officers for the work on what is a very complex and rapidly changing environment. But I think the highlight for me today is since we've started, we've really got a change in quite a dramatic change in our environment. We've got a different outcome, lifespans now for our landfills. Wellington possibly 5 to 6 years if we don't actually plan on extension. That's quite critical. So this has moved into a high priority area for our council now. But also we've got things like contaminated soil. Wellington City is taking 20 to 30,000 tonnes. That's like a third of what is coming into our landfill now. That is a priority. And also now with the emergency response, we put out 600 one-tonne bags and we don't know yet what the commercial impact of the storms is. And that's just localised. If something really happens at a more regional level, we are in big trouble. It's quite frightening. And so I guess there are a couple of things I'm concerned about here is the timing it's taking us to start getting through these projects. If we've got a government that's saying you amalgamate in 90 days or we'll do it for you, and we're not putting together even a rough plan in 90 days, we've got to move faster. But look, I appreciate the work that is being done and we do want to get it right. But also timing alignment. If we're not lining up with our LTP, then it's really hard to know when all of this discussion fits in. So that will be my ask for the next. We're deciding on our LTP budgets now. So if we haven't got what we want to put in by September, we've missed the boat again. So Yes, quite an alarming position to be in. And so I guess the other thing we need to start factoring in there is if we are amalgamating, what does that look like, and where is a conversation line in this committee to look at that. So yeah, that's some thoughts from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foon. Does anybody else want to give comment at this stage? Councillor Free, then I'll have Councillor Halliday.
Just very briefly, because I'm new to this, but I echo your concerns, Councillor Foon. Obviously, I'm here because I'm on the regional council now, and I can see that regionally, we've got to start thinking regionally, because when we're closing one landfill, it has impacts on all the others, as has been mentioned in our papers. But I do think that we need the data sooner. I think that you've made a very valid point, Councillor Foon, because 5 to 6 years time frame is actually quite scary. It is a short time. It's not easy to do these major big projects, and I do wonder what is going to happen to the region's waste if we don't have places to take it or other ways of disposing of it. And even to change the community's attitude to dealing with their own waste takes an awful lot of work. So I think that the time is short. It's a very rapidly changing background that we're dealing with, especially with reform, local government reform. But we need to be over the data and be able to present a very clear picture of what's available, what's working, what's not working, which is why I was trying to sort of get my head around the actual data streams and what's being measured, because that's crucial. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Free. Councillor Halliday.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. You have a lot of uncertainty at the moment. I think, as Councillor Foon's pointed out, we've got amalgamation conversations going on, no legislation sitting behind it as such, which leads us to very, very challenging conversations. I would like to think I'd have confidence that each individual council, things like landfills, are actually looking at their relevant solutions and have been for a while, that none of this sort of should be new as such, but do appreciate the time frames that we're talking about. And again, you start getting emergency waste thrown into the equation, contamination. That's a bit of a wild card, but I think it's part of our new reality there as well. Which leads me on to another point, which is I think this is really, really important then, that the relationships that we have become crucial, and ensuring that council officers are working in that higher level and a high trust model with other councils and with other officers as well. It's important that we're sharing information. It's important that we're working together with a no surprise type approach to things. Even if it's the unpleasant stuff that doesn't want to be talked about, it has to be talked about. And I'll be the first person to say I prefer to hear the not so great stuff. I wouldn't, but in the same token, on the same breath, saying I wouldn't be hanging anyone out to dry, because we're all in this together. We're all trying to get to good pathways and good solutions for our waste challenges as such. But, from where we've been to where we are, yep, great results. I'll just say organics again. As we like pushing that conversation. But just the importance of us to be in that trust model where we are communicating well, and we are talking together and working together as well. Other than that, that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Halliday. Councillor MacLeod.
And given this discussion, is there something, Mr. Chair, that we could put in place today? I know that it's awfully late for what we couldn't possibly do a notice of motion, I guess. But, is there something that we can put in place rather than just a discussion in the minutes, that there be some clear action taken so that if September is our next meeting, that we actually have some clear data, some clear opportunity to discuss options, try and get mana whenua to that discussion, because the whole regional thing, and I know that we have to get something into the government by the 9th of August around amalgamation, but surely we can have these discussions alongside that and have something concrete. And what can we do today to make sure that concrete action happens?
Councillor MacLeod's a very good point. I am beholden to the committee as a whole to how you want to proceed, but I would make the following suggestions. First of all, rather than do as a notice of motion, I think perhaps I will relay the request of the committee to officers to prepare as a special agenda item, in the context of a amalgamation, the kind of issues that have been raised in this meeting. Officers will be aware from the lines of questioning what is and the commentary thus far what is being required in that agenda item. If we were to go any further, for instance, to write to the Mayoral Forum, which I would all expect that the mayors who are representing us in the Mayoral Forum with regards to the issue of amalgamation are already being well aware and well briefed on this issue and the consequences of that with regards to waste minimisation. So I don't know if it's necessarily going to confirm a point that we already think that they are already working in concert on. But we will, by September, be in a position where we will know, A, what the application to the Minister around amalgamation is from the regional mayors and what potential solution there is. We will therefore want to know what that means for waste minimisation and management. Does that help with your request, Councillor McLeod? Yes. I think so. I mean, it's as best as I can suggest at this stage. But it is a timely reminder that if you do want to have additional suggestions as a notice of motion or amendments, happy to also use that from time to time as well, so long as they are in alignment with standing orders. Okay, I'll leave it there for that one. Councillor Mitchell. Bending these rules. I'll go with Councillor Mitchell and I'll...
Yeah, I just wanted to note to the midpoint review that is coming to the next meeting. This is a 6-year plan. It spans 2 trienniums, which is quite a long time for a plan in an ever-changing world, as has been noted. But I think that's a good opportunity for new members of this committee to be brought up to speed on some of those projects. Some of those projects, as been noted, are being closed off as successful, and others have reached a point of not successful currently. But the question, I think, always is where to from here. And the organics is one that's been noted. And I noted even in the local action plans, most, if not all, councils were dependent on this facility coming online for their FOGO collections. And now it's time for a rethink about what we can do collectively, or what our councils can do individually, or even now perhaps looking a bit further afield for a lower North Island solution. So I look forward to that midpoint update and a bit of a refresh on some of these projects and where to from here. We've tried the kind of obvious option for some of them, and it hasn't always worked out for us. In other cases, we have had success, like with the C&D facility here in Porirua. But again, the question for me is always where to from here. So even now that that one's online, how do we make sure it's getting used to its full capacity, and then looking to add capacity elsewhere after that? So yeah, just looking forward to that report in September, and maybe it is a good point at this midpoint in the plan to start some of these conversations about what we might want from there.
I'll go. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Halliday, very briefly.
Very briefly, just something that hasn't really been touched on is the upcoming elections and our point of advocacy. And I just thought it might be worth mentioning. September's starting to get a little bit close to that election time, but maybe there might be 3 or 4 key issues that this group might want to put forward as issues that we'd like to potentially see addressed with the incoming government. Perhaps the plastic bottles scheme that got dumped, perhaps fronting foot. There's the front end tax for dealing with waste. Could be another one, which was mentioned in the paper, and maybe front-footing some funding for, I don't know, crazy thing, addressing organics. Just saying. That could be some funding options that they might be able to put forward to address that, because we know we can't deal with everything at once, but we can certainly deal with things steps at a time.
Councillor Halliday, I think you raised a good point, and one of the reasons why I have not been so aggressive in the line of questioning with regards to our advocacy with central government is just because of the shifting outcomes post procurement on organics. But perhaps, and I can talk to you about this offline, feel free to bring forward for the next meeting perhaps language around an amendment or notice of motion that would allow us to highlight these particular issues in the lead up to the general election, and we could do that in a way that deals with those concerns, but also does it within the standing orders. Thank you, Councillor Halliday. Councillor McLeod, you briefly.
Yeah, sure. I'm just thinking, can we add a recommendation in the recommendations around the changing landscape that we're in and elevating the review, Could we do that?
The only reason why I loathe this out, I think we might be in breach of standing orders and bringing up amendments at this stage, considering that people have spoken at this stage. In terms of so give me a second. So I think the better way to deal with it, so as to avoid us further breaking over rules, and this time actually important ones like the standing orders, is to note it has been noted, and then we will come back and you have the opportunity to then also bring up amendments or a notice of motion at a subsequent meeting. So let's keep it clean on that side of things. But I would think that officers have clearly registered feedback from members of this committee as to the specific concerns and information that would be desired for the next report. And I will assure you, as chair, that has been followed through with. Any other comments? Great. I get to speak last, so there'll be no hands up in this section, so let's tie it all in together. First of all, to Stephanie, David, Yvette and Jessica, thank you very much for participating in answering our questions on this matter. It is important for us as committee members to be able to provide oversight in a shared endeavour. We are working in good faith here across all councils. I'm not the only one who has said that already. I want to take a moment, because I didn't do this at the start, and I promised him that I would say this without embarrassing him, but please, our best wishes to Ewan and his recovery, and that we will see him very shortly back around this table. It is not serious or dire as I understand it, but it is important to manaki our people as we go through this. I want to also follow up the commentary from Councillor Mitchell with regards to CND. The opening of the site in Porirua is a big deal. It is such a relief to have it finally done. And it does also illustrate a point that was made by officers that things do take longer than you anticipate, but it is done. And so, again, as Councillor Mitchell has said, we cannot just see our plan as the top or the apex of a situation. We need to continually look at where to from here. When we passed our plan in the previous triennium, it was ambitious, but it was also mindful that we were not going to be able to get to the ultimate goal in that time period. So we need to also have a mindset, a culture across all the councils that we are constantly checking what is next and where can we go from there. It is, however, also important to note that Porirua around the same time, in fact, the very same day, made a decision to proceed to the LTP with the preferred option of as part of a closure to Spicer landfill. This, as has been highlighted by other councillors, but I note Councillor Foon from the Wellington City perspective, is a proof positive of the need to advance rapidly in spite of the fact that we have got so many factors, external, central government, local government issues, but waste will not wait for those issues. On a similar note, I do love the organics, Councillor Halliday. It's very apt, but it is a ticking clock. Irrespective of whether that waste is coming from households, which is, as has been noted by officers, a relatively minor component of the total volume, we still require a solution. It is not to... the lack of a successful conclusion in terms of finding a procurement of a solution is not to be seen as a reflection on the individual officers whose sincerity and efforts have tried very hard over a long period of time to find a solution. But we are still where we are, and we still need to find a solution. And I would hope that individual councils not only are sharing and communicating with each other in good faith, but that also our procurement is robust, but also does not hamstring us from being able to find a cost-effective solution. Finally, the Waste Forum. It is nice to tidy up that piece of work. I want to pay tribute to those who have been involved around the Waste Forum Committee, including our Councillor Mitchell here, whose work in making sure that we had a smooth landing and that the pūtea goes to an important organisation like Enviro Schools. I reflect upon that as perhaps the opportunity for us to teach our mokopuna and our rangatahi to do better, to make better decisions than we have inherited. I will leave it there for now. There's last comment. It's been moved. It's been seconded. Oh, sorry, Evie. Oh, and David? There's fingers being pointed and stuff. Oh, of course. So for those who are listening in, I also want to mihi that Evie and her change of role within the organisation, and thank you so far for all the mahi, and thank you and the best wishes as she moves into that new role, and the mahi moving forward as well. Please note that this committee is relied upon a number of individuals. It is complicated by the fact that there are so many councillors who are involved. Having good coordination has been ever so essential to that. Thank you very much, Evie. Okay. Let's get this done, shall we? Moved, seconded. Let's go for the vote to pass the recommendations. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, no. Abstentions, carried. That brings us to the end of the agenda for today's meeting. Did we do a karakia at the start of our tui? It went very quickly, didn't it? Okay. Well, anei he karakia whakamutunga recite with us o toru whā. He kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana. He huarahi mā tātou e te rangi nei. Aroha atu, aroha mai. Tātou, ia tātou katoa, hui e, tae ki e. Kia ora everybody, have a great day.